But we were in our happy place, or actually, to put it more accurately, at least the way that we feel it deep in our hearts, we were in one of those places where we always experience just a little bit more heaven on earth, Bennett Springs State Park, just outside Lebanon, Missouri. And we were trout fishing, which, as most of you know by now, is one of my most favorite things to do. And on this particular occasion, our son Luke and I were fishing at the mouth of the underground spring that comes up and feeds down through the state park and empties into the Niagara River. It was a picture-perfect morning, a little brisk, but nonetheless very calm and sunny and bright. And Luke and I were fishing on the banks of the stream, casting our lines way out, down deep into the mouth of the underground spring. It was early in the morning, and we had actually already caught several fish, and so it was a really good day already, but it was about to get even more wonderful and amazing. I think there were probably about 5 other people fishing there, not too many people fishing there other than me and Luke. And all of a sudden, there was this fly fisherman who was standing out in the middle of the stream, and he looked right at Luke and I and pointed to his right, to our left. And when we looked, we saw this beautiful mama deer and her little baby deer coming out of the woods and walking directly toward where Luke and I were fishing on these boulders on the banks of the stream. Everybody who was there immediately stopped and sort of froze in silence, not only to take in the sight of these 2 beautiful animals, but also, I think, to see what they were going to do, especially given the fact that Luke and I were basically sitting right in front of where these 2 deer seemingly wanted to pass. But slowly, this mama deer just kept coming right toward Luke and I with her baby right beside her. And I think that Luke was probably 8 or 9 years old at the time, and he was all boy, which meant that he rarely stood still. But as this whole scene unfolded, Luke amazingly remained completely frozen. Everybody who was there, I think, thought that the mama deer was going to get spooked by something at some point and turn around and run off back into the woods the way she came with the baby in tow. But I guess because she was well acquainted or something with the park and with people, that really never happened. Instead, she just kept walking slowly toward us with her baby right beside her. And when the 2 of them got right on top of us, amazingly, this little baby deer edged off the pathway and inched closer and closer to Luke, and actually for several seconds, very softly and tenderly, began nibbling on Luke's skin, as if to kiss him. And then, as nonchalantly as this little baby deer had come off the pathway, she went back on the pathway, rejoined her mom, and the 2 of them just kept walking along on the pathway until they disappeared in the forest on the other side of the stream. As you might imagine, it was an absolutely amazing experience. And the stillness and the giftedness and the tenderness of those beautiful and precious moments were not lost on me or Luke or anyone who was standing there that morning. We all either stood or sat there in complete reverential silence for quite some time after the 2 had gone on their way. Well, I just wonder if you might imagine with me this morning, in the stillness, in the giftedness, in the tenderness of these moments, the Spirit of God coming straight to where you are, not necessarily where you are physically, but actually where you are spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And like a little baby deer nibbling on a little boy's ear as if to kiss him and bless him and love him, inching closer and closer to the ear of your heart, if you will, and softly and tenderly whispering to you, you are a beloved child of God. Whether you've been baptized or not, which is obviously our theme for today, whether you remember your baptism or not, I wonder if in the stillness and giftedness and tenderness of these moments, if you might more fully receive into your heart the single most important thing for you to ever deeply internalize in your life, that you are a beloved child of God. That's what baptism is all about. That's what Jesus' baptism was all about. It's not so much about the ritual act of baptism by water, except for the fact that that's just our public way of affirming and proclaiming the good news that's at the heart of the gospel message itself, that nothing can ever change the fact that Jesus is God's beloved Son, that you are God's beloved child, that anyone and everyone who ever has been or ever will be is a beloved child in God's whole human family. I don't know if you've ever noticed this or not in the Gospels, but while we can certainly safely assume that Jesus had a very full and meaningful life as he was growing up and as a young adult, it's as if his life really didn't exist until the time of his baptism, when we've always guessed that he was probably about 30 years old. Outside of the birth stories and outside of a couple of stories that we have of him when he was a child, all of the stories of Jesus' life come after his baptism. It's as if the gospel writers are trying to say to us that Jesus' life became so rich and full and meaningful exactly when he came to deeply know and deeply internalize that he was God's beloved child. As you think about his life, can you imagine Jesus being able to endure all that we know he endured without deeply knowing and internalizing that he was God's beloved child? When have been those special moments, like it was for sure for me and Luke on that morning at Bennett Springs? When have been those special moments when you have known and deeply internalized that you're a beloved child of God? Are you feeling that way today? Obviously, we may not necessarily on this particular day deeply know or feel that, but all of us are here this morning because there have been countless times along the way when we have known that. When the Spirit of God or the grace of God has descended like a dove into our lives, or like a little baby deer kissing a little boy's ear, and saying to us, sometimes we feel us alone, out of all of humanity, sometimes whispering to us alone that we are one of God's precious and beloved children. And as a result, we can do no other than to love God with all of our heart, to love all of God's people, and to love all of God's creation in return. I read a story this last week about a man who was a stalwart leader in his church, and he had been for quite some time. But he was telling one of his friends that that had not always been the case, that when he was younger and before especially he met his wife, that he was, in his words, quite the scoundrel. But after he met his wife, who was so kind and so loving and so caring, he absolutely began to change because he wanted to live up to her love. He told his friend that the truth was that his wife actually loved him into loving. I think all of us can relate to that, don't you? Whether it's in relation to our spouse or other loved ones who have loved us so amazingly and so well, or whether it's in relation to the grace of God that has descended into our hearts when we felt so lost or felt all alone and saved us into deeply knowing and internalizing that we, of all the people in the world, are precious and beloved children of God. God has loved us over and over and over again into loving. And so, very simply this morning, whether you've been baptized or not, or whether you remember your baptism or not, you are a beloved child of God. God, as the Scripture says, has called you by name. God, you, as the Scripture says, belong to God. So go and love today and always, because you have first been loved. Amen.